and I will share my screen. Are you all able to see the Adapting Social Scoro screen and the specialist dashboard? Fantastic. So today is an exciting day because you will be actually setting things up on Scoro. And what I'm going to be taking you through is how to create a project. And then from that project, how you will be assigning tasks to people with the relevant dates, and how to add historic time logs from Excello over to Scoro. I'll run through the process, and then you'll all have the chance to actually do that for one of your projects. And me and Kai will be here if you have any questions as you're going through it to help out and get those answered. What I'd also like to do at the end is help you all set up a filter to keep on top of your projects and any overdue projects, and then show you how you could pull that through to your personalized dashboard screen as well. Let's get started. So I'm logged in under Angelica's alias again. And what I'm going to do is click over to the Projects tab up here in the menu. There's a new button in the top left, which will enable us to create a new project. So I'm going to click on that. I'll just quickly point out as well, don't worry about trying to remember every single step. I have written out a list of the key bits of information you'll need to complete and the key steps. So Chris has that. He might have shared it already, or if not, he'll do so soon. So you will have a written reference of all of these steps that you can look at whilst you're doing the setup for yourselves. So just to recap, I'd click Create a New Project. And what we've actually got set up for you guys is a whole bunch of project templates. And these live in this drop down in the top right over here. And the great thing about project templates is that they have a lot of starting information, so you won't have to be entering everything from scratch. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the ACS project template as an example. So this is going to be the first thing I do, because it's basically going to overwrite everything that we've got in the project so far. So we always want to do this as our first step before we start filling in the title or anything else. The first step is always to select your template. There obviously are different templates within here. So if you're working on a project that's not the ACS project, pick the one that's relevant. If you have any questions about which one to pick, ask Chris, but hopefully they will be fairly familiar and explanatory. What we can see has happened is a number of bits of data have been filled in from the template. So there are some things that you won't need to worry about. For example, the project tags have been pre-selected if the project tags are relevant. If the project that you're using is a different type of project, in fact, let me just go through this process quickly again. I'm going to click New, and I'm going to click from the project template, graphic design. We can see that the graphic design template obviously does not have the same tags ticked as we've got in our ACS template. And oh, I think are we missing a graphic project type, or does that need to be filled in, Chris?
For any, I'm sorry, you're doing a graphic project right now?
Yeah, I just wanted to show the difference in terms of the data that's populated from the different templates. And I thought
the project type is selected based off of the request from the client. So it's ad hoc.
Thank you. Super. I'll cover that in just a sec. But yeah, I wanted to kind of show these two different templates just so that you can see that, you know, some of this information is obviously going to be different depending on the template that you've selected. I've just hopped back now to our ACS template, which was our starting one. Other bits of information that we can see have been pre-populated are the estimated duration. So for all the ACS projects, we have a time budget of 25 hours and 25 minutes. So that's been pre-filled. The project number is automatic as well. So those are the things that you don't need to complete. And what I'll do now is take you through the things that you do need to complete that are going to be specific to this project. Any questions so far? Google. The project name is, as you can see, kind of using the ACS template, we've got this generic format that's put in here. It is something that you'll need to customize using this format. So, for example, Scoro, January 2023. The client is another field that you'll need to complete. So if you click in the client box, the easiest way to find your client is to start typing out the name of the client, and it will then pop up. So I've typed in Scoro, and I'm going to pick Scoro. The next key bits of information are your start date for the project and your due date, which is essentially your project deadline. Typically, you will be creating your projects in advance. So I understand a lot of your projects will start on the 1st of the month and finish at the end of the month. Not all the time. Some of your projects will obviously span longer, but in terms of many of your monthly projects, that's often the case. So what we can do in here is use the calendar picker to pick the correct date. So I'm going to set this project to start on the 1st of Feb and with a deadline to complete by the end of Feb. You'll see that the default status is not started. If you are creating a project for the future, that is the correct status. If it's not due to be worked on quite yet. If you were ever creating a project that is starting today, right now, you could go in and just change that to in progress. But I expect the majority of the time it will be fine to leave this as not started if you're creating it for the future. You'll see that as the person creating the project, you've been pre-assigned as the project manager. If you needed to change that, you can obviously pick from the list. And you've also got your project members over here. So anyone else who will be working on this project, you can tick their names. That means that when we are looking at our projects that have been assigned to us, we will see that project in our list. Only assign people who'll be obviously actively working on this project. Yeah, you don't need to worry about adding anyone else. The final things that may need to be completed are the project drive folder and the markup link. So I will pass over to Chris for a quick explanation of what these fields are and when they should be used, if that's all right, Chris.
Yeah, of course. So for primarily with this project template, the project drive markup link will most likely not be used, but for anybody who's working on a Google project, a graphics project, or anything that requires a link that's going to go to the drive that we had talked about yesterday. This is where that project folder is now going to live. So it's easy access. You're not going to have to sort through the drive looking for a specific file. So for an example, if this was a graphics project, we would have the link to the folder for this specific project. So if it was the iPhone brochure link would live in here. And then for anything that's web related or graphics related, the markup link that we're going to be using for just the client feedback that we have is going to live in here as well. So that way it's direct access. You don't have to worry again sorting through emails or things like that. So it's just easier access. So everyone has the ability to click to it right away.
Thanks, Chris.
Sure.
And that's pretty much it. So let's just kind of run through that process again. I'm just going to not save anything I've done. Go back to the projects view, click new project. The first thing I will do is select the relevant project template. I then put in the project title. I select the client. I select my start date. I select my end date. So first and last of the month or whatever is relevant to this project. I pick the people who will be involved in this project. If it is a different status, I can set that here. If you have a relevant drive folder and markup link, you can add them here as well. And that is everything that you will need to do. Any questions? I'm now going to click Save. Computer's struggling a little with speed today, so apologies for that. We can now see that our project has been created. Here is the title that we input. We can see that it's linked through to Scoro. We can see that the start date is the 1st of Feb and the end date is the end of Feb. And we can also see our project time budget up here. And then there's a few extra things that you'll be able to see in the project page as well, which I will talk you through. But just very quickly, when you're looking at your project, if you realize that you've made a mistake, I added the wrong Christopher, for example, or got one of the dates wrong. The modify button in the top right over here, if I just click on that, will take you right back into this view that we were just looking at when we created the project. So if you ever need to change anything, just click modify and you'll be back in this view. I'm just going to click the back button. So we're now back looking at our project page. We have gone through the process of creating the project using our template. And what we're going to look at next is how we can assign tasks, the relevant dates, and assign them to the right people. One thing that you might need to toggle on, because this is a kind of a customizable setting, is the Gantt chart view. If you go into your project and it looks like this, just tick the Gantt chart toggle button and you will see the Gantt chart appear on your screen over here. The Gantt chart is an incredibly useful and time-saving tool that allows you to schedule dates for your project, phases and tasks. You'll see that you've got the option to change the view. So it's set at weeks for the moment, but we can actually set it to span out and look at months, or get even closer and look at days as well. The first thing that we will need to do, and some of you might have spotted that although we have set the project start date to be February, the tasks that have been generated in here, which have come through from the project template, so our social media tasks, our email tasks, etc., have actually all been populated to start from today's date, because this is when we created the project. But moving them is very easy. So if we want this project to start at the beginning of February, what we need to do is the very top bar where you can see the project title. We just need to grab that and move it into February. I'm actually just going to go into the days view now, so I can just check and move it through to start on the 1st of Feb. So if you are creating a project for the future, this is something that you'll always need to do. Open up the Gantt chart and just move the top project bar along to the start date. You'll see that after I made that change, a little save button came up. You'll need to click this save button to save the changes. And when I do that, all of the dates for all of the phases and all of the tasks will be updated in bulk and automatically for you. Within the Gantt chart, we have our project title up at the top over here, and we can see how long we've got in the project, so 25 hours and 25 minutes, which is also what we can see in our overall progress bar over here. And we can click to expand the phases and see the tasks within the phases. There are some very useful view features that I'll take you through. So again, you might not have all of these settings the first time you log in because they're personalized. But one thing that is extremely handy to tick is your progress bar. What that will mean is when we are looking at individual tasks, you will be able to see how much time has been logged versus planned. At the moment, obviously, no time has been logged on this project. We've only just created it. So, we can't see the progress on task quite yet. But during the course of the project, it's a really handy way for you to stay on top and see, if you're keeping within the targets of each task. There are other things that you can enable as well. So, for example, the start date and the due date. If I put some ticks in over there and click to display, you will see that start date and due date have now come up just here. Now, one way that you could assign some more specific dates to certain tasks would be just through clicking in here or clicking in the due date, and you can pick the date from the picker. However, you can also use the Gantt chart to rearrange or to set the dates of tasks as well. So for example, I could just drag this task over to Thursday. And if I was happy with that change, click save. Now, with projects where you've got quite a lot of tasks and different phases of those tasks, I don't know. In fact, I'll ask you, Chris, how typically would you approach a project like this Is it the objective that all of these tasks should be complete within the first, or at least the email SEO blog reporting within the first week or so of the project, or do they typically get staggered throughout the course of the month?
Yeah, it'll be based off of each individual person to figure out when they're going to complete that email or that blog for that month for that specific client. So the length of time for the task is accurate, but then when it starts and completed, that's up to the account strategist to figure out, okay, I'm going to, work on the blog at this point this month, and so on and so forth.
Thanks, Chris.
Sure.
So yeah, as Chris said, the amount of time or the duration, which is the planned time for this particular task, has been set. You won't need to worry about that. But the start and due dates should be set by you based on when you plan to work on them. Depending on how you prefer to work, you can set the start and due dates in here using the calendar picker, or you can drag them to a certain day in the project, remembering to click save once you've made your changes. So that is by far and away the easiest way to add all of your dates to your tasks and see how everything connects. One final thing or a couple of final things I wanted to point out about the Gantt chart view. You will notice no work gets scheduled over a weekend. So if you move something forward, the weekends will be missed out. Tasks will be pushed to the next working day. And you can also see that some of the tasks have dependencies in them, and that is with the arrows that you can see linking one task to another. Dependency simply means that, the previous task needs to be completed before the next one. And were you to then push one of these tasks forward, you will see that it is therefore automatically pushed the next task, which is dependent on it, forward as well. These dependencies have been set up in the task bundles based on the core dependencies of the tasks. If you felt as an account manager that you wanted to create any other dependencies and workflows within your tasks, there's no reason why you can't create those yourselves. So for example, if add photos needs to happen before client revisions, you can simply drag or click on the diamond icon and drag it to the diamond icon of the next task. And again, any changes that you make in the Gantt chart, always remember to click save. If you do forget to click save and try and move away, so for example, if I clicked on tasks, you'll see that you get a warning notification. Are you sure you want to leave the site? Because it knows that you've made some changes and haven't clicked save. So you will have a safety net if you forget to click save. Does anyone have any questions about the Gantt chart and assigning dates, moving things around, the dependencies? Okay. So just to recap what we have looked at so far, we have looked at creating a new project using a template. We saved that project, which took us to our project page. We have then used the Gantt chart to move the whole project forward to when the project is due to start. And then we have started going into our individual tasks and assigning them the correct start and end dates, either from here or through dragging and dropping in the Gantt chart based on when you want to work on them. So right now we have a project which has been set up with all of the tasks with their relevant start and end dates. And the next thing to do after this is make sure the tasks are assigned to the correct people. One way that you can do this is from the Gantt chart. So we can see if we click on this button over here, we can bring up a list of users and we can start searching for someone to bring them up so you don't have to scroll all the way. So that's one way that you can assign tasks. Another way, let's click save, is assigning tasks in bulk. And this is particularly helpful if, you know, there's going to be one person working on most or a lot of the tasks in the project. And you can do this by scrolling down to the planned activities, which are all of the tasks in the project, and clicking on planned activities. What we can now see is a list of all of the tasks in this project. And what we can do is click on this top button up here and select either everything that is in the future, which is everything in this list here, or select absolutely everything from the whole project, all the different groups. So not just in the future, but also ones where a due date has not been set. Hopefully, if you've completed the previous step of assigning all of your tasks their relevant start and end dates, we won't have anything with the due date not set. So I'm just going to say select all, and you can see that this has selected absolutely everything. If I knew that there are a few tasks that a certain person wasn't going to be working on, I can just unselect them. And you can see that we've got an option up here to assign to user. So if I click on a person, you then have the option to add them or replace them. Replace them means that if there was someone already on the task, they'll be unassigned and the task will be reassigned to Angelica. Or if you know, you want to not change anyone who's assigned to a task, but just add the new person, you would click add. I won't do this because I'm going to try and not give Angelica too many test tasks in her list. But yes, clicking on add would then mean that in bulk everything gets assigned to that person. So this is quite a time-saving way if you've got yeah, a lot of tasks in your list. If you have got a project which actually doesn't have that many tasks, then you know, you could also do it from this view as well. Has anyone got any questions on assigning tasks to users? Okay. There is one final thing that you'll need to do, and this is only applicable to your active projects right now, where you started with the project on Axelo and you're now moving over to Scoro. It will not apply ongoing for any new projects that you create directly on Scoro. And that final thing is we want to get the records of the time that has been logged on Axelo over to Scoro. And this is how you will do it. On planned activities, you'll see that there's an add button up here. If we click add task bundle, an option for task bundle comes up. And you can see that in fact, the first one in the list is the Axelo historic time imports. So I'm going to click on that. You can now see that a task has been created called historic time from Axelo. As you will remember from our training yesterday, time in Scoro has to be logged against a task, not a project. And that is why we have added this task to the project so that you're able to do that. The task is now there. So the final step will be going over to Scoro, seeing how many hours have been logged. And in this situation, we're obviously not going to be using the stopwatch if there have been 4 hours and 43 minutes logged so far. We are just going to add a time entry, and we will pick the amount of time that has been logged on Scoro. One thing just to point out, and Chris, this might be something that you want to customize or leave as is, but the way the options are laid out here, you see they start jumping when we get from 3 hours to 3 hours 30, so you haven't got an option for 3 hours 15. If you did want to be more specific about the amount of time that was logged in Scoro, that can be customized in site settings, Chris. So I can point you where you can go and change that. Or alternatively, you might be happy for people to just like round up or round down. What would you kind of want to do?
I'll definitely look at those in the site settings, but also just allowing others to, if you select other, it'll allow you to type in that manual
Oh, that's true.
as well. So we could do it that way for the time
So
being.
thank you, Chris. Even though I work for Scoro, I certainly do forget about some of the very cool features that we have from time to time because there are just so many of them. So if we had 3 hours and 45 minutes, as Chris says, select other and you can type it in over here. You don't need to worry about an activity type, and you don't really need to worry about a description for the historic time imports, because the title will kind of imply that. So yeah, just a case of adding the right time. It's fine for that to be set to today's date. What that will mean is that potentially if you do a lot of these today, you will look like you've had the most productive day ever. You will have logged, you know, maybe 80 hours. Yes, don't worry if your time logs for today or this week look a little bit strange. That's obviously the reason why. And that is pretty much it for project setup. So just to kind of go through from the top once more, we will go to our project section. We will click New Project. We will select our template as the very first thing we do. We will fill in the title, the client, the start date, the due date, the project members, and if needed, a different status, and where relevant, the links to drive and markup. We will click Save, and that will generate our project for us. We will then use the Gantt chart to move the whole project to the project start date and click Save. And then we will go through the tasks and start assigning them the relevant start and due dates based on when you intend to work on them, either via here or through dragging and dropping in the Gantt chart and then clicking Save. Once you've run through all of your tasks and they've got their dates, you can then assign them to the relevant people, either through here or through clicking on Planned Activities, which will mean that you can then do it in bulk. And the very final thing to do is to add the task bundle, historic time imports from Scoro, and then record the amount of time that has been logged on Scoro so far. You will not need to do this step for any future projects that are created on Scoro where you don't have Excello time logs. Any questions? Brilliant. Well, now is a good time for you all to have a go at doing this yourself. So I think you've all got access to Scoro as of yesterday. Chris, was there any final instructions that you wanted to give to the team in terms of a good project to start with, or kind of anything else of note?
Yeah, so primarily for account strategists to start off with, you'll notice from the first template that Helen had gone through was the account strategist sort of monthly. Now, normally you guys would be creating your blog, your social media, email, all of those separate. So moving into Scoro, we created this massive project that encompasses all of those tasks that are part of the client's package. So that way we can't forget to do the blog or email or whatever it might be. So it's a great way just to have that visibility of what has to get done on the account. And then things like the, graphics or a marketing campaign, things like that. Those are all those ad hoc requests that come in from the client. So those would be separate projects that you would create. But so anything that has social media, email, SEO, blog, your reporting, all of that is going to live in one master project now. So it's just easier to have accountability of what you need to be working on. So with that being said, might have an Excello project, like for this month, as an example, a social media project, an email project, and a blog project. You won't have to create 3 separate projects. Create one project in Scoro, the master monthly account strategist project, and then you'd be able to log the time directly in there. So for 3 projects, you might only need to create that one project in Scoro. Does that make sense for everybody? Anybody have questions on that? No? Okay. And if there's any historical as well, so if for whatever reason, we're doing something, we have something that's still going from October of last year, and it's just a blog, that's fine to create its own project then. So there's a blog template for it's a solo project for that. So if you have a blog open still for some reason, go ahead and create just a blog project for that. But for January and then moving forward, you'll only be creating that monthly project. And then any ad hocs would be like the graphics and web edits and things like that.
Thanks, Chris.
Sure.
And that's just reminded me, in fact, of one final point that's very specific to the account strategist project, which is for the SEO phase. It's not actually linked to a specific task bundle, because I believe that you'll need to pick the right one. Is that right, Chris?
Yes. So there's different phases for the different months that you're going to be in. So you'll notice SEO phase 1 through 6 is going to be on there. So depending on what was done the previous month would determine obviously what happens on the next month. And it's a continuous cycle. So once you get through all 6, you go back to phase 1 and you'll continue on through there. So Megan, are you on the call, Meg?
Hi.
Hi. For right now, for January, should everyone just select phase 1?
Yeah, that works.
Okay. So for January this month, we'll do phase 1, and then we'll be good for there.
So yeah, important thing to note for this particular project template, because the SEO task bundle does change month to month, that is something that you will need to select. I don't know if there are any other project templates, Chris, where the task bundle needs to be set on a per project level rather than it's been preset in the template, or is it just this one?
Just this one.
Super. And
real quick. Oh, sorry to cut you off. Chris, for the SEO team, do we have just a standard phase template for us to go on? That's like each phase individually for us, or are we just going to go in and handle it how we're doing it like the account strategists here? And then for the phase, do you want us to just set it as the current phase we're working on for that client, or just set it to one for everything?
Yeah, so actually SEO has a project has been built in where it encompasses all 6 phases for you guys. So you're only creating a project once every 6 months instead of once every month. And what you can do is just create that project right now, and then we can. You can just go ahead
For now,
and
you want us to just log time against the current phase, and then we'll just kind of take it from there.
Yeah, well, the time will be logged. Yeah, for you, it's actually easier to do it that way. For SEO, log it against the current phase that you're in, and then for the other phases. So if you're on phase 3, as an example, just keep note of which clients those are. So if you have Chris's Pizza House, and you're on phase 3, just make a note of phases 1 and 2 have already been completed, and we'll go and do those at a later time. So you'll be able to pick up whichever phase you're on.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
And Chris, would there ever be an occasion where within the account strategist, might you not be doing, let's say, email for one particular client? Or do they always get absolutely everything?
For the most part, they would be getting everything. Are you asking just to showcase like how you would delete something if needed? Yeah. You can showcase that just in case that were to ever happen.
So if you ever did have a client and you weren't doing the monthly emails for them, before you so after you've created your new project from the account strategist template, if you knew that email wasn't part of their bundle, you can just delete over here, and that will get rid of the phase and the tasks. It sounds like that would be an exception rather than something you'd need to do, on a regular basis. So, yeah, I'll let you guys have a go for yourselves. I'd say I'd like to kind of grab 5 minutes at the end just to show you some filters that you can set up for your projects, and some alerts for any projects that might be overdue. So what I would say is if we at 5 to 10 have a look through that. So from now until then, have a go at setting up your project. Kai and I will be here to answer any questions as you go.
Cool. I'm also here, obviously, guys, if you need me to go through anything. I think, Helen, you should be good to stop sharing if you'd like.
Sure.
If that's easier.
Chris, this may be a silly question, but when, let's say we're working on a graphic with Matt and his team, and would we go ahead and add comments into the specific activity, into the specific task? So when we send it over, let's just say we get it back from the graphics team, I'd go into account manager review, leave a comment and tag the designer within that comment to discuss edits?
Yes, you can do that, but also we want to move over to using markup for those graphic projects as well. So right now it'd be a little it's going to be a little bit different just because we're not using markup for all of the projects, but moving forward, that's part of the graphic designer's process to create a markup link. So that way all edits can live in markup. So that way we can track when they're being completed, who completed them, timestamps, things like that.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Sure. Also, guys, what I'm creating right now and all of the projects for you is a toggle for progression of Scoro. So once you've actually migrated it over to Scoro, you can change the status of your project to Scoro, just so that way you know that's completed, and then I can go and do a QA check and just make sure it's all set. So I'm just finalizing that right now with all those project templates.
Hey, Chris, for web projects, so for example, I have a very long, like, ongoing project. It started in 2021. So do you want us to log, say, like SOW time?
No, you can just do the total time is fine.
Okay, but where are we logging the total time then?
In Scoro, so just create that task bundle. Helen had showcased how to create a history task bundle. So you would just take the total time of that project right now and put it into that task.
Into that project, or?
Yeah, so if in that project you're talking about in Excel is 50 hours as an example, create the new task or create the new project in Scoro, create the task bundle for the historic time, and you just log the 50 hours under historic time.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks.
Yep. Okay, all of those project templates should be good now with the Scoro progression. Helen, I can go ahead and delete all of the content that was in Angelica's account, right? We don't need-
Yes, you can indeed. I was going to ask you about, yeah, if you wanted me to help with any of that. In terms of deleting the tasks within kind of any test projects. If the projects have already been deleted, then I can go into the tasks and kind of bulk delete any task that isn't linked to a project. So yeah, let me know if you'd like me to help with that.
Okay, let me jump in now, and if I could, I'll just flag it up.
Cool.
Thanks.
Chris, are we doing new expected due dates or the one listed in Acello?
Do what's listed in Excel.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
How's everyone getting on? I'm assuming no one's got hugely stuck, but yeah, does anyone have any questions or things they wanted to double check? What stage has everyone got to? Has everyone managed to create the new project using the template and save it? See a few thumbs up, which is good. And have you been able to use the Gantt chart to start kind of moving dates around? Naturally, the first time you create a project is always going to be a learning experience, and once you guys get familiar with the process, hopefully it will be fairly straightforward and quick going forward. Although obviously the bigger the project, the account strategist ones have quite a lot of phases and tasks within them. So, you know, more dates to assign and people to assign and things like that compared to your smaller projects. Would it be all right for me to share my screen again so that I can show you how to set up a couple of filtered bookmarks and alerts for your projects?
Sure.
Thanks. So is everyone able to see the project screen on Scoro?
Yes.
Thanks. One of the things we looked at yesterday was how we can use filters and save bookmarks. We can see at the moment that these are all the projects that are assigned to me. One thing that we can do is click to filter. And the due date, which is the project deadline, what I'm going to do is set the due date to until today and click filter. What that's going to do, if I had any projects that are in my overdue list, is it is going to show me all my projects with a deadline in the past up until today's date. What you would then do next is click to save as bookmark. Oh, sorry, I forgot one important step. So you will filter by due date until today. What you will then do is click on the view option, and in the summary bar, click total. This will just tell you how many overdue projects you've got. Obviously, in this instance, there aren't any. What I will then do is save it as a bookmark. And you can call this My Overdue Projects. Okay, Helen test, My Overdue Projects. There is a watchdog action over here, which allows you to set up an alert. Now, this watchdog will only appear if you have got something in your summary bar, and that's why I needed to click summary bar total to show the number. If you don't see it, it's because you haven't set anything to appear in your summary bar. If I then click notify by email, you can see here that we will then get an email if the total is higher than 0. What that means is the minute that one project goes into your overdue list, the total will be 1, which is higher than 0. So you are going to get an email alert. So that's a very handy thing for you to set up. I'm just going to click save, and by all means, Angelica, if you'd like to keep this, you can keep this. Otherwise, feel free to let me know to delete it. So I've now got a bookmark set up for my overdue projects, so I can revisit this at any point. Now, let's say I wanted to pull this into my dashboard. So I've also got visibility in my personal dashboard whenever I first log into Scoro to see any overdue projects. As we discussed yesterday, the default dashboard called Specialist isn't one that you can edit because it's a shared dashboard. However, what I can do, if I like this dashboard and want to add overdue projects to it, is click duplicate current dashboard. So I'm going to click that now, and I'm going to call this test new dashboard. And I'm going to untick shared because I just want this to be my dashboard. And I'm going to click save. What I'm now going to do is click add to dashboard. And I'm going to click, let's say, result metric, and choose from bookmarks. I'm going to start typing in what I called my bookmark, which was my overdue projects. It's going to pull through the total, so we will see the total number of overdue projects that I've got. And it's not a goal to have overdue projects. Maybe it's we want to say it's a limit. We want that to be red if we've you know, kind of got anything in there, and click save. So now we can see in your dashboard, you've got a counter for how many overdue projects you've got. You'll remember that this is a portal. So if we click on this, it's going to take us straight through to my overdue projects. Another thing that you might like to do is obviously handy having the kind of total, but maybe you want to actually see a list of any overdue projects on your dashboard. In that situation, we could select widget, choose from bookmarks, my overdue projects, choose the information that we want to appear on the screen. I'll just let the defaults be selected. And now what we have here is a widget that will give us a list of the projects, so we can click directly on the project to go to it. That same principle obviously applies to you know, any filtered views and bookmarks that you set up in Scoro. I know we started having a look at this yesterday, and I thought off the back of what we've been doing today, this would be another good example to show you. But again, any bookmarks that you might set up within the task section, projects or otherwise, save them as bookmarks, and then you can pull them through into your personal dashboard so that you can keep on top of everything from one place. Does anyone have any questions on that? I can send through the a screenshot and the steps for setting up that bookmark, just so that yeah, you have that to hand. But yeah, it's fairly straightforward. My projects, in fact, let me just go back to the bookmark. My projects filtered with a due date until today, and make sure that you've got the summary bar set to display the total, and then you can set up your email alerts, and then you can also pull it through into your personal dashboards. Does anyone have any questions about setting up projects, tasks, dashboards, anything? Cool. Chris, was there anything kind of final that you wanted to cover?
No, I think that's it. We're all going to pop onto the other link for the team, so we can continue adding in our projects. So actually, you know what, team, I have to send you a link for that. Let me do that right now. But yeah, I think everybody is, we're all good to pop onto that new link that you guys are getting in your email right now.
Fantastic. Well, if there's any questions that pop up as you're working through things, Chris is obviously a great fount of knowledge, but anything that isn't clear, Chris, just put me an email, and yeah, I'll reply as soon as I can. And yeah, hope the rest of the setup goes well. And Chris, I'll be in touch with you later today with a wrap up as well.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Brilliant. Thanks, everyone.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks, Ellen.